Episode 3. The last place Cassiane Roane was heard did not look like a grave. That would have been easier. Graves asked you to lower your voice. Graves told you the story was over. Graves gave grief a shape, a stone, a place to kneel. The East Tower of Vale Meridian's first broadcast house did none of that. It stood near the river like a wound that had learned how to remain upright, blackened brick, boarded windows, a crooked antenna cutting into the storm clouds, rusted gates, yellow safety tape snapping in the wind, rainwater sliding down the old walls in dark lines that looked too much like tears. And beside me, Seraphine Vale went so still that for one terrifying second I thought the bond between us had frozen. Not broken, never broken, frozen. She stood beneath the weak streetlight in her dark coat, silver hair damp at the ends, grey eyes fixed on the burned tower, as if the building had reached across 13 years and placed a hand around her throat. Behind us, Vessa spoke quietly into her phone, coordinating security and legal cover with a voice so calm it sounded unreal. Orla stood near the car, scanning the empty street. Junie and Arma had refused to stay behind, so they sat inside the second car, under protest from everyone except themselves. I should not have come. I knew that. Every reasonable part of me knew that walking into an abandoned broadcast tower because an unknown sender had sent me an address was reckless beyond forgiveness. But the unknown message had carried a name, Cassiane, and that name had opened something in Seraphine that I could not ignore, not because I owed her rescue. I did not because the bond demanded I follow her pain into the dark. I refused to become a leash, even for my own heart. I came because Calla had used my silence. The city had used my tears. Moonvale had used my voice. And somewhere in this old tower, another Omega woman's voice had been taken long before mine. If I walked away now, I would spend the rest of my life wondering whether freedom had frightened me the moment it stopped being about only myself. Seraphine looked at me. "You can still choose not to enter," she said. Her voice was steady. The bond was not. I felt the tremor beneath each word, the old guilt clawing at her ribs, the alpha instinct trying to make danger smaller by putting herself between me and every door. I looked at the tower, then at her. "I know that is not the same as choosing freely." "No," I said, "but neither is leaving because you are afraid for me." Pain crossed her face. "Only for a second. I am afraid for you. I know. I am afraid of what is inside. So am I. I am afraid of what I did not tell you." I swallowed. The river wind cut through my coat. "Then tell me before we go in." Seraphine looked back at the tower. For a long moment she said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was low enough that even the rain seemed to lean closer. Cassiane Roane was not only an editor, she was the first woman who made me understand that a microphone could be more dangerous than a weapon. I did not interrupt. She worked under my mother at Vale Meridian. She was brilliant, difficult, unafraid in a way I resented because I was 19 and confusing obedience with survival. She had built a proposal for a network of Omega-hosted night broadcasts across the city, crisis calls, legal information, shelter support, heat safety, grief hours, real help carried through voices women already trusted. My chest tightened, like midnight mercy. Seraphine closed her eyes. Yes, like what midnight mercy should have been allowed to become. Rain struck the pavement between us. She leaked documents when the board buried the proposal, Seraphine continued. My mother called her reckless. The executives called her unstable. Sponsors called her dangerous. I signed the order that blacklisted her. The words did not soften because I had heard part of them before. They landed again, harder here, in front of the tower. Why? I asked. Seraphine's jaw tightened. Because I was a coward wearing ambition as armor. The answer was too honest to argue with. I hated that. I hated how truth could hurt without giving you an enemy simple enough to hate cleanly. She came here after that, Seraphine said. This tower still had emergency routing access. Cassiane knew the system because she helped build it. She broke in and broadcast for 11 minutes across 6 districts. What did she say? She named the programs they killed. She named the stations that buried them. She named clinics that paid to keep heat safety segments off air. She named sponsors who preferred lonely Omegas buying comfort products over informed Omegas finding help. I felt sick. She almost named my mother, Seraphine whispered. She almost named me. And then? Seraphine looked at the burned upper windows. The signal died. The archive room caught fire. Cassiane survived, but smoke damaged her voice. Not completely. Enough. The tower seemed to breathe in the rain. Did you know the fire would happen? No. Did your order put her here? Seraphine looked at me. Yes. No excuse, no dressing, no asking me to understand. Just yes. The bond ached with it. I looked toward the rusted gate. And now someone wants us inside. Yes. Is Cassiane alive? Seraphine went still. I believe so. You believe? I have not seen her in years. She refused every meeting, every apology, every offer. Maybe she had reason. She did. The answer came instantly. That mattered. I took a breath. Then we go in. Seraphine's hand twitched, not reaching, restraining herself from reaching. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. For a moment, all the terror softened into something almost unbearable. Beside me, I said. Her eyes darkened. Always, if you allow it. I allow it tonight. She bowed her head once. Not dramatically. Not like an alpha accepting a vow. Like a woman being trusted with a match in a room full of old paper. Vesa approached with a flashlight. The gate chain was cut recently, she said. No active city cameras on this block. That is either convenient or staged. Both, Orla said. Junie rolled down the car window. And if the building collapses, I will personally haunt all of you. Amma leaned over from the passenger side. Please be careful, sweetheart. I will. Junisa snorted. That was not convincing. No, it was not. But it was the best I had. The gate groaned when Orla pushed it open. The sound moved through the street like something waking. Inside, the tower smelled of ash. Not fresh smoke. Older. Buried in brick and wood, soaked into walls so deeply that even years of rain could not wash it out. The lobby was dark except for the thin sweep of Vesa's flashlight. Reception desks sat overturned. Old glass crunched softly beneath our shoes. Posters from forgotten Vale Meridian programs hung in damaged frames. Weather hours, music nights, city bulletins. Women smiling beside microphones, as if the future had not yet learned how to betray them. Then my phone vibrated. I stopped. It was turned off. It lit in my hand anyway. White text appeared on the black screen. Welcome back to the first room, Vesa whispered. That is not possible. Another line appeared. Liora Ven, if Seraphine told you enough to make herself look guilty, but not enough to make herself useful, ask better questions. Seraphine's face went cold. Cassiane, she said. The speakers overhead crackled. For a moment, there was only static. Then a woman's voice entered the dead lobby. Rough. Low. Damaged. Alive. Follow the red lights. Emergency bulbs flickered one by one down the hallway. Red, red, red. Like pieces of an on-air sign scattered through the dark. We followed. The hallway opened into the old broadcast floor. I forgot how to breathe. The room was burned, but not dead. Black scars climbed the walls. Part of the ceiling had been reinforced with steel supports. Old monitors glowed along one side, patched into new equipment. Cables ran across the floor in careful lines. Printed documents covered the walls beneath clear sheets, organized by name, date, station, program, and cancellation order. At the center stood a woman with copper haircut just below her jaw, silver threaded through one side. She wore a long dark coat, practical boots, and no visible jewelry. Her face was thinner than the image the city had flashed across the screens, her eyes brighter, older, sharper. Cassiane Roane. She looked at me first, not Seraphine. Me, Liora Vale, she said. Her voice was damaged, yes. Smoke had roughened it. Time had dragged its nails through it. But it still carried. I understood at once why 11 minutes from this tower had frightened powerful women enough to bury a decade. You came, Cassiane said. You asked. I asked whether you wanted the truth. Coming here was your mistake. Seraphine stepped forward. Cassiane. Cassiane finally looked at her. The room changed, not louder, colder. Seraphine Vale, Cassiane said. Still beautiful, still late. Seraphine accepted the blow without defense. Yes. Cassiane's mouth twisted. Good. At least age taught you one useful word. Vesa stood very still near the wall. Orla checked the exits without pretending not to listen. I looked around at the documents. What is this place? Cassiane walked to the nearest wall and tapped a sheet. The room beneath the room, the history under your broadcast. The reason women like Kala know exactly which buttons to press. Kala's name appeared on one document dated 5 years earlier. I stepped closer. Moonville Radio, emotional retention strategy for late-night Omega audiences. My skin went cold. Cassiane watched my face. Yes, she said. They studied you. I read lines until the words blurred. Voice profile, high intimacy trust among isolated women. Risk, emotional authenticity difficult to standardize. Monetization potential, grief-based listener retention. Retention, not comfort, not community. Retention. My stomach turned. I thought I was helping people. You were, Cassiane said. That is why it worked. The answer was cruel because it was not cruel. It was simply true, she continued. Systems like this do not survive by making every comfort false. They survive by putting real comfort in cages, then charging rent. Seraphine stood behind me, silent. I felt her guilt like a storm pressing against glass. Cassiane looked at her. She should know the rest. Seraphine's eyes lowered. Yes. I turned. What rest? Cassiane walked to the old microphone at the center of the room. This tower did not burn because of faulty wiring. Vesa inhaled sharply. Seraphine went still. Cassiane said, I believed that lie for 3 years. Then I found the maintenance logs. Someone disabled the suppression system in the archive room before my broadcast. My mother, Seraphine whispered. Her office, Cassiane corrected. Lysandra Vale rarely dirtied her own hands. The name entered the room like poison poured into water. Seraphine's mother. Dead, but not gone. Apparently women like her did not die. They became policies, contracts, locked doors, old recordings waiting in burned towers. Seraphine's face had drained of colour. I did not know. Cassiane looked at her for a long time. I believe you. The words hurt both of them. I believe you did not know about the fire, Cassiane said. I also believe you signed the blacklist order that forced me into this tower alone. Both truths can stand in the same room. Seraphine's mouth trembled once, only once. Yes, I had never seen her like this. Not cold, not powerful, bare. The city called her the Frost Alpha, Because ice was easier to understand than guilt preserved for 13 years. Cassiane turned to me. Your bond with Seraphine is not the problem. I flinched. The problem, she said, is that every woman who wants to use you will make the bond the loudest thing in the room so no one hears the old machinery running beneath it. The monitors shifted. Moonvale's logo, Vale Meridian's old crest, sent clinic chains, private media councils, sponsor networks, Alpha Family Foundations, all women, all powerful, all connected. My voice came out small. What do you want from me? Cassiane's eyes sharpened. The same thing everyone wants from you. I hated that answer. She moved closer. But unlike them, I will say it plainly. I want your microphone. Seraphine stepped forward. No. This time the no did not hit me. It hit Cassiane. Cassiane smiled. There she is. Seraphine's voice was cold. You will not use her. I am trying to stop her from being used. By making her the face of your unfinished war? Cassiane's eyes flashed. It was never only my war. It is not hers by default. No, Cassiane said. It became hers when Calla read her mother's death on air. I flinched. Seraphine turned toward me instantly. Cassiane saw the movement and softened, but not enough to become gentle. I am sorry, she said to me, but kindness cannot be allowed to hide urgency. That sounds like something every powerful woman says before asking an Omega to bleed, I replied. Silence. Then Cassiane smiled. Small, sad. Good, she said. Keep that instinct. I looked at the walls, the names, the files, the burned microphone. What happens if this goes public? Stations fall. Sponsors deny. Boards resign. Scent clinics sue. Some women are vindicated. Others are dragged through old shame. Seraphine's company survives, but not cleanly. Moonvale dies or is reborn under new ownership. You become impossible to ignore. And if I say no, then I release what I can without you. It will matter. It will not move the city the same way, because I am viral, because you are trusted. Trusted. That hurt more. I had spent years earning that trust night by night, call by call, breath by breath. Now everyone wanted to spend it. I looked at Seraphine. What do you think? Cassiane snorted softly. Seraphine did not answer quickly. I appreciated that. Finally, she said, I think Cassiane is right about the machinery. I think she is wrong to place its exposure on your shoulders tonight. If you choose this, it must be because you decide your voice can carry it, not because every woman in this room knows you hate silence. My eyes burned. Cassiane looked between us. Interesting. Seraphine's gaze stayed on mine. What? You learned, Cassiane said. Seraphine's jaw tightened. Late. Yes, Cassiane said, but late is not never. The old broadcast room settled around us. Outside, thunder rolled over the river. I thought of Calla in red, of my personnel file, of my mother's name in her mouth, of listeners calling from kitchen floors and hospital corridors, of Seraphine's name turned into accusation, of Cassiane's voice roughened by smoke. Still standing in the room that had nearly killed it, a thought came slowly, dangerous, mine. I do not want to release everything tonight, I said. Cassiane's eyes narrowed. Seraphine stayed silent. I do not want to become the face of something I barely understand. I do not want the city to turn all these women's lives into another spectacle because my name is trending, and I do not want you. I looked at Cassiane. To hand me a microphone with a bomb attached and call it truth. Cassiane watched me. But I also do not want to go back to Moonvale and pretend this is only about one cruel station manager. Then, Seraphine asked softly. I looked at the old microphone. Then we do what Midnight Mercy does best. Cassiane tilted her head. We let women call. Vessa's eyes sharpened. Seraphine's breath changed. I stepped closer to the microphone. Not tonight as evidence. Not names dragged into light without consent. We open a secure line. Anonymous if they choose. Verified if they want. We let every silenced host, producer, editor, technician, caller, shelter worker, clinic nurse, tell us what happened in their own words. We do not spend their trust. We build a room big enough for it. Cassiane stared at me. For once, she had no immediate answer. Seraphine's voice was low. That would take infrastructure. I looked at her. You have towers. A faint, stunned expression moved through her eyes. Cassiane barked a rough laugh that turned into a cough. Vesa stepped forward. It would require legal shields, encrypted intake, independent oversight, trauma support, media partners not directly owned by Vale Meridian, and a public statement before Moonveil reframes the night. Orla added from the doorway, and security. Everyone looked at her. She shrugged, obviously. For the first time since entering that burned room, possibility moved through the air, not victory, direction. Then Vesa's tablet chimed. Her expression changed. Moonveil just announced Midnight Mercy is suspended indefinitely. My chest tightened. Calla again. Even now. Especially now. Vesa continued, reading with disgust. Pending a full ethical review. They are warning listeners not to follow unauthorized streams or emotionally manipulative broadcasts using Liora's name. Suspended. Midnight Mercy. Indefinitely. Even knowing it might happen did not make it hurt less. My show, my room, my women in the dark. Seraphine moved toward me, stopped. Liora. I looked at the old microphone. A strange calm moved through me. Not silence this time. Decision. Can this tower broadcast? Cassiane stared. For 11 minutes, it once did. I looked at Seraphine. Can you make it safe, physically? Legally enough for now. Her mouth tightened. I can make it difficult to stop. That is enough. Cassiane's eyes lit. Seraphine took one step closer. Liora, think carefully. I am. This will escalate. It already did. They will say you are unstable. They already did. They will say I am controlling you. Then stand where they can see you are not. Her eyes held mine. The bond warmed, fierce and aching. Then she nodded. Tell me what you want. I want one last broadcast under the name Midnight Mercy. Silence. Vesa slowly looked up. Cassiane's expression sharpened. Seraphine's eyes darkened. Last? She asked. The word hurt her. It hurt me too. Yes. No, Cassiane said immediately. Do not surrender the name. I am not surrendering it. I am burying the cage. Seraphine watched me, understanding arriving with pain. I continued. Moonveil can fight over Midnight Mercy. Let them. Let the lawyers pull the old name apart. Let Calla hold a dead logo if she wants. But I will not let my listeners wake her. Tomorrow, thinking I vanished, Ved, because Moonveil told them to stop looking for me. I looked at the burned microphone. So tonight, I say goodbye properly. Then tomorrow, we build the new room. Cassiane's eyes narrowed. What new room? I thought of every woman listening in the dark, not Mercy. Mercy sounded like something granted from above. We needed witness, return, a door that did not belong to any station. The night room, I said. The words arrived whole. Seraphine repeated softly. The night room. Vesa was already typing. Domain available. I blinked. You checked already? I am efficient under pressure. Cassiane smiled slowly. Better than Mercy. I sat before the old microphone. My hands no longer shook. Then let me say goodbye. Vesa moved fast. Cables connected. A tablet opened. Orla. Checked doors. Cassiane entered commands into the old console with the confidence of a woman, returning to a body she had, survived losing. Seraphine made 3 calls in a voice so cold the air seemed to lower around her. Each call lasted less than 30 seconds. Block injunction for 15 minutes. Public interest exception. No, she is not an employee acting under Moonvale right now. Then put your name under mine and be brave for once. That last line made Vesa glance up with quiet delight. At 2:17 in the morning, exactly 3 nights after I first cried into a microphone, the old tower woke. A low hum moved through the floor. Dust trembled on the console. Somewhere above us, in the rain and dark, the crooked antenna blinked red. The on-air light came on, not bright, not clean, but alive. I leaned toward the burned microphone. Merrow City, I said. This is Liora Ven. The tower carried my voice with a grainy warmth, rougher than Moonvale, less polished, more alive. For everyone who found me tonight, this is not Moonvale Radio. This is not Studio 9. This is not a broadcast approved by the women who suspended my show after profiting from my pain. I inhaled. This is Midnight Mercy, one last time. The words hurt. They were supposed to. If you are listening from a kitchen floor, a night bus, a hospital corridor, a locked bedroom, a stairwell, a parked car, a dorm room, a clinic bathroom, a shelter bed, or a window where the rain looks like it understands you, I am here. I heard Cassiane inhale behind me. Seraphine stood near the wall, visible in the old camera feed but not central. Beside me, not over me. Tonight, they told you Midnight Mercy was suspended. Maybe they are right. Maybe a station can suspend a time slot. Maybe a board can lock a studio. Maybe a manager can cut a microphone and call it care. Maybe a contract can hold a name hostage. My throat tightened, but no one can suspend what happened between us in the dark. The tower hummed. Somewhere in the city, I imagined old radios turning up. I imagined Junie and Amma in the car below, holding hands. I imagined the women outside Moonvale, listening through rain and static. I started Midnight Mercy because I thought mercy was all I had to give. A soft word, a gentle voice, a little warmth before dawn. I thought if I could help you survive the night, that would be enough. I swallowed. Sometimes it was enough. Sometimes one breath is everything. But tonight I learned something that should have been obvious long ago. We deserve more than survival. We deserve records. We deserve protection. We deserve names for what hurt us. We deserve doors that do not lock when our pain becomes inconvenient. Seraphine's eyes shone in the dim room. Cassiane's hand rested against the old console. I continued, so this is my goodbye to Midnight Mercy. Not because I am ashamed. Not because Calla Rusk suspended me. Not because Moonvale owns my voice. They do not. They never did. My voice cracked. I let it. This is goodbye because the room we built became too large for the cage they gave it. On the monitor, messages began appearing. Liora, we hear you. Do not go. We stayed. Where do we find you? My eyes filled. If you are afraid I am leaving, breathe first. I smiled through tears. You taught me that. Cassiane looked away. Vesa wiped one eye angrily and kept typing. The night room will open tomorrow, I said, not as a replacement for what they took, but as proof that they did not take everything. It will be independent. It will be guarded by women who know what silence costs. It will not spend your trust without your permission. If you have a story, you may bring it. If you have only breath, bring that. If you have nothing but silence, we will hold a chair for it. The signal flickered. Vesa cursed softly. Seraphine stepped toward the console. Cassiane snapped. Do not touch that. Seraphine stopped. Even now, even under pressure, she stopped when told. That mattered. I kept speaking. And to the woman who tried to make my grief into evidence, I say this. You did not make me stronger. Do not take credit for what I built after surviving you. The signal steadied. To Cassiane Roane, whose name many of you heard tonight for the first time, I will not tell your story for you, but I will say your voice was real. It was heard, and if the city forgot, we will teach it how to remember. Cassiane's face broke. Just slightly. Enough. Then I looked at Seraphine. My heart hurt. And to Seraphine Vale. She went still. The room seemed to vanish. Only the microphone remained between us and the city. You heard me cry before you ever saw my face. You could have turned my pain into a possession. You could have made protection another cage. Sometimes you still might want to. Sometimes I will be afraid of that. Sometimes you will be afraid of yourself. Her throat moved. But you asked. You waited. You told the truth when lying would have made you easier to love. You stood beside me when you could have stood over me. My voice softened. I do not know what the bond will become. I do not know what I can promise. But tonight, while everyone is listening, I want the city to know this. If I choose you, it will not be because your alpha called me yours. It will be because the woman inside the alpha learned how to hold power without closing her hand. Seraphine closed her eyes. When she opened them, I almost forgot how to speak, because the Frost Alpha was crying, not loudly, not beautifully, just one tear slipping down her cheek in a burned room full of women and ghosts. The city heard the silence after my words. Then I leaned into the microphone one last time. This was Midnight Mercy. Thank you for staying with me until dawn. I paused. The words nearly broke me. Goodbye. I switched off the microphone myself. The on-air light died. For a second, no one moved. Then the old tower went dark. Not all at once. Light by light. Monitor by monitor. Like an exhausted thing finally allowed to sleep, I sat in the silence with my hand still on the switch. Goodbye. It was over. Something in me folded. I did not cry until Seraphine knelt beside my chair, not in front of the city, not for cameras, just there, in the dark after the signal died. Liora, she whispered. I covered my face. I killed it. No, I said goodbye. Yes, I loved that show. I know. It saved me too. I know. That was when I broke. Not prettily. Not softly. I sobbed into my hands in the burned tower where another woman's voice had almost died, and Seraphine did not pull me into her arms until I reached for her first. The moment my fingers touched her sleeve, she gathered me carefully against her. No claim, no pressure, just warmth, cedar smoke, cold bergamot, rain, a coat closing around my shoulders. The bond trembled, not with hunger but grief. Shared, carried. I cried for the show, for my mother, for Cassiane, for all the women whose voices were turned into strategy. For every night I had told others to stay, while secretly believing no one would stay for me. Seraphine held me like she knew one wrong movement could turn comfort into cage. That was the thing that undid me most. Her care had edges. She knew it, so she made them visible. After a while, Cassiane spoke. I recorded it. I laughed wetly against Seraphine's coat. Of course you did. Cassiane's voice was rougher than before. It was good. I lifted my head. For Cassiane, that sounded like a blessing. Thank you, I whispered. Vessa looked at her tablet. The city is responding. I wiped my face. How badly? She looked up. Her eyes were bright. Not badly. She turned the tablet. Messages filled the screen. The night room. We will follow. Goodbye, Midnight Mercy. Thank you for getting me through winter. The room was real. We are still here. We are still here. We are still here. I pressed one hand to my mouth. Seraphine sat back on her heels, giving me space though every part of the bond wanted closeness. Then my phone buzzed. Once, then again. The sound was different from the flood of messages. Sharper, colder, unknown number. My body knew before my mind did. Seraphine saw the change in me instantly. What is it? I opened the message. Unknown. Nice goodbye. Shame if the city learned what really happened to your mother. Everything inside me stopped. The burned room tilted. My mother, not Calla's cruel mention of her, not grief as a weapon, something else. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. Calla was never the only one with files. Then a photo loaded. A hospital corridor. A date. My mother's name on a transfer form. A stamp at the bottom. Vale Meridian Health Media Partnership. The breath left me. I stared at the form until the letters broke apart. My mother had died at St. Aurea's after a transfer delay. That was what I had been told. Too many patients, too little space, bad timing, a city that did not stop for poor Omega women and their tired daughters. But the document in my hand suggested something else. A transfer request. Denied. Reprocessed. Flagged for internal media health review. What did media have to do with my mother's hospital bed? Seraphine reached toward me. This time, I stepped back. Not because I wanted to, because the bond had gone too loud and I could not hear my own thoughts beside her. What is this? I whispered. Seraphine looked at the phone, her face drained of colour. I do not know. The answer sounded true. That made it worse, because if she did not know, someone else did. Someone had waited through my tears, through Moonvale's collapse, through Cassiane's return, through the birth of the night room. Someone had watched me build a door, then slid my mother's ghost beneath it. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. Tomorrow, ask Seraphine why your mother's final transfer was processed through her network. The bond went cold, not dead, never dead, but shocked into silence. I looked at Seraphine, the woman who had whispered my name across the city, the alpha who had stood beside me, the daughter of an empire that seemed to have touched every wound before I even knew it existed. Her voice broke when Liora, I swear to you, I did not know. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did. Part of me always would. But my mother's name glowed on my phone, like a door opening under my feet. And behind that door was a question far older than the bond. Who had been deciding which women were allowed to be saved? Cassiane moved first. Give me the phone! Seraphine looked at her sharply. Cassiane's eyes did not leave mine. Not to take it from you. To trace the file metadata. I handed it over because my hands were shaking too badly to hold it. Vessa was already at Cassiane's side. The two women who had once stood on opposite sides of Seraphine's past bent over my phone with the same furious focus. Seraphine did not move, neither did I. Between us, the bond trembled with words neither of us knew how to speak. I did not know, she said again. This time, the words were smaller, not defensive, desperate. I looked at her. I believe that you think that. Pain crossed her face. It hurt to say. It hurt more to mean. Because I did not think Seraphine was lying. But I had learned in 3 nights that powerful women did not need to know every harm their systems caused in order to benefit from the damage. Cassiane looked up. This is real. My knees almost gave out. Arma, who had entered quietly at some point with Junie behind her, crossed the room and put an arm around my shoulders. I leaned into her because if I did not lean into someone, I would fall. What does it mean? I asked. Cassiane's face was grim. It means your mother's hospital transfer was flagged by a partnership program between Vale Meridian's Health Media Division and St. Aurea's Public Outreach Office. My mother was a patient, I said. She was not media. No, Vessa said softly. but crisis cases involving unbonded omegas were sometimes categorized under public sensitivity protocols. I stared at her. What does that mean? Vessa's jaw tightened. It means hospitals and media partners monitored stories that could become public scandals. Denied care, heat neglect, pack abandonment, emergency crowding, anything that could generate outrage if a family went public. The room blurred. My mother needed a bed. Cassiane's voice roughened. Yes. And someone looked at her file and saw a public relations risk. Vessa swallowed. Possibly. I laughed. A horrible little sound. Amma's arm tightened around me. Junie whispered a curse so soft it sounded like prayer. Seraphine's face had become unreadable again. But through the bond, I felt devastation. Not guilt alone. Recognition. Her empire again. Her family again. Her name again. Always there, stamped somewhere at the bottom of another woman's pain. I was working at Moonvale then, I whispered. I was doing extra shifts. I was paying hospital bills. I called every department. They told me to wait. My voice cracked. They told me transfer, approval, takes time. Cassiane looked down at the phone. This file was reviewed 3 hours before her transfer window expired. My body went cold. 3 hours. 3 hours in which my mother had still been alive. 3 hours in which someone had held a file, checked a box, weighed something, delayed something, decided something. 3 hours. Seraphine took 1 step back, I noticed. Even through the roar in my head, she was retreating because she thought her presence hurt. Maybe it did. Maybe everything hurt. But I had asked her not to leave me to protect me. Now she was about to do exactly that with grief as an excuse. Stop, I said. She froze. I looked at her through tears. Do not move away from me because you are ashamed. Her throat moved. I do not want my name near your grief. It already is. The words struck hard, both of us. I continued shaking. I do not know what that means yet. I do not know what you knew or did not know. I do not know who signed what. I do not know if this changes everything or only explains why everything hurt so much. I swallowed. But if you leave right now, because you think your absence is noble, I will hate you for making me lose one more person to silence. Seraphine's eyes filled. She did not come closer. Not yet. May I stay? She whispered. The question broke me more than any apology could have. Yes. Only then did she step back toward me. Not touching. Waiting. I reached out first and caught the edge of her sleeve. It was enough. The bond warmed by a single degree. Not healed, not forgiven, but alive. Cassiane watched us with a complicated expression. Then she turned to Vessa. Find the reviewer. Vessa nodded. Already trying. Orla appeared in the doorway. The street outside is not secure for much longer. A drone passed 2 blocks east. Junie and Amma should not be here. Junie glared. Junie and Amma are standing right here. Exactly, Orla said. Amma looked at me. Sweetheart, we need to move. No, I whispered. Everyone looked at me. I stared at the old microphone, the one I had just used to say goodbye. The one that had carried my voice through a burned tower, the one that had awakened ghosts and brought my mother's name back to me. No more running from rooms where files decide whether women matter. Seraphine's face tightened. Liora. I looked at Cassiane. Can this tower broadcast again? Cassiane's eyes narrowed. You just said goodbye. To midnight mercy. The room stilled. I wiped my face with my sleeve. It was not graceful. I no longer cared. The night room opens now. Vessa's eyes widened. Now? Yes. Cassiane stared at me. With what? With the truth that I do not know the truth yet. Seraphine stepped forward. That is dangerous. I know. They will say you are unstable. They already did. They will say grief is driving you. It is. The answer silenced her. I looked at the microphone. Grief is driving me. Anger is driving me. Love is driving me. Fear is driving me. I am tired of pretending decisions only count if they are made without feeling. Cassiane smiled slowly. You may actually be built for this. Do not sound so pleased. I am rarely pleased. Enjoy it. I sat back at the microphone. Vesa looked between Seraphine and me. Seraphine closed her eyes for a second, then opened them. What do you need? Not defense. Then? Witness. She nodded. Done. Cassiane reset the console. Vesa rerouted through smaller stations before Vale Meridian could be blamed as the only carrier. Orla locked the doors. Junie and Amma refused to leave, but agreed to stand away from windows. Seraphine stood behind me, not in frame this time. I looked back. No. She blinked. What? Beside me. Her face changed. Liora, after what you just saw. Beside me does not mean innocent. It means accountable. Cassiane muttered. That is going on a wall. Seraphine stepped into frame. Beside me. Not touching. Not hiding. At 3:12 in the morning, the night room opened for the first time. No music. No introduction package. No logo. Just me, a burned microphone, a scarred alpha beside me, an older Omega witness behind the console, and the truth trembling in my hands. This is Liora Ven, I said. Midnight mercy has ended. The night room is open. The words did not sound triumphant. They sounded raw. Good. I said tonight that this room would hold stories only when women chose to bring them. I meant that. So I will begin with mine, but I will not pretend it is complete. I held up my phone. My mother died after a hospital transfer delay. For years, I believed that delay was only one more ordinary cruelty in a city full of ordinary cruelties. Tonight, I received a document suggesting her case was reviewed under a media health partnership connected to Vale Meridian. Seraphine did not move. The bond shook. I kept my voice steady. I do not know yet who made the decision. I do not know whether delay became denial because someone feared scandal more than loss. I do not know whether the name beside mine tonight is guilty, ignorant, responsible, or all the complicated shapes powerful women hide inside. Seraphine inhaled. I looked at her. She understood. Then I looked back at the microphone. What I know is this. If my mother's file was touched by a system that counted her as a risk before it counted her as a woman, then I will not let her become one more private grief used to silence me. Messages began appearing, slow at first, then faster. My sister's file had that stamp. St. Aurea delayed my aunt. I was a nurse there. I know public sensitivity protocols. I have records. Please protect us. I turned the microphone slightly towards Seraphine. She looked at me. I nodded. Not permission to own the story, permission to answer. Seraphine leaned in. This is Seraphine Vale, she said. Her voice was lower than I had ever heard it. If any Vale Meridian division, past or present, participated in delaying care, suppressing patient complaints, or categorizing vulnerable women as reputational risks, I will open the records to independent review. Vesa's head snapped up. Seraphine continued, I will not choose the investigators. I will not control the archive. I will not bury findings to protect my name. She paused. Her voice changed, not weaker, truer. And if my mother built this system, I will not call inheritance innocence. The room went still. Cassiane looked at Seraphine as if seeing a woman she had waited 13 years to meet. I leaned closer to the microphone. The night room begins with a promise we may fail at and try again. No woman's pain becomes proof without consent. No woman's file becomes leverage. No woman's silence becomes permission. The old tower hummed. I do not know what tomorrow costs, but tonight, if you are holding a file, a memory, a name, a question, or only a wound you were told to keep private, because someone powerful might be embarrassed, the room is open. I took a breath. If all you can do is listen, listen. If all you can do is breathe, breathe first. The first live call came through without warning. Vessa looked startled. Line connected through South Quay relay, she whispered. Cassiane frowned. I did not open voice intake. The speaker crackled. A woman's voice emerged, shaky but clear. My name is Thessanor, she said. I run the South Quay morning station. I am rebroadcasting you. I have 3 former St. Aurea nurses here with documents. We need to know where to send them. My hand flew to my mouth. Cassiane leaned toward her mic. Encrypted intake link will be live in 2 minutes. Vessa was already moving. Another voice came in through a separate channel. This is Reva from Citywave. Dawn shelter hour was cancelled after we aired heat safety resources. I thought it was only sponsors. I have memos. Another. This is Nessa at Moonvale. I have internal call screening records. Kala ordered the staged caller. I will testify. Another. This is Dr. Valea Ivan from the Cooperative Clinic Network. I am not affiliated with Vale Meridian. I will serve as medical review witness if asked. The room filled with women. Not physically, through wires, through static, through the old tower that had once carried 11 minutes of truth and almost died for it. Cassiane's hands shook on the console. Seraphine noticed. So did I. Cassiane saw us seeing and snapped. Do not look at me like that. Like what? I asked. Like I am healing. It is irritating. I almost smiled through tears. The calls kept coming. Not all details. Not yet. Names withheld. Stories half told. Documents promised. Questions asked by voices that had been waiting years for someone to say, we are listening now. At 4-0, Vessa closed intake temporarily because the system was overloaded. At 4-6, all confirmed cars were approaching and strongly suggested we leave before the old tower became a public scene. At 4-8, Cassiane insisted on pulling physical drives before moving. At 4-10, Junie threatened to carry Cassiane over her shoulder if she did not hurry. At 4-11, Cassiane told Junie she was welcome to try. At 4-12, Ama quietly removed the most important folder from the wall and put it in her coat, solving the argument while everyone else postured. By 4:20 we left the East Tower. But this time, it did not feel like leaving a grave. It felt like leaving a door open behind us. Dawn had not yet broken. The city was deep blue and silver, the hour before morning when every building looked forgiven from far away. We drove in silence. I sat beside Seraphine in the back seat, not touching, not avoiding. The space between us was full of my mother's name. That was not something a kiss could fix. It was not something an apology could soften. It had to remain there until truth entered too. Seraphine looked out the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. I wondered how many versions of herself she saw there. The 19-year-old who signed Cassiane away. The daughter who inherited Lysandra Vale's empire. The alpha who put my name on towers. The woman who said inheritance was not innocence live on air. The woman I wanted, even now. Maybe especially now, because wanting her was no longer simple enough to be fantasy. I need time, I said. Her eyes closed briefly. Yes, I believe you did not know. A breath left her. But that does not clear you, no. If your company touched my mother's file, I will open every door, even if it ruins you. She looked at me then. There was no frost left. only exhaustion and something like devotion made careful by shame. If the truth ruins me, then whatever survives will be more honest than what I have now. I looked away first, because I wanted to touch her, because I was angry, because both were true. I hate this, I whispered. I know. I hate that your name is everywhere. So do I. I hate that I still want you near. Her breath caught. I looked at my hands. I hate that most. Seraphine did not answer for a long time. Then she said, I consist in the hate with you. My eyes burned. What? I do not need you to make wanting me clean. I do not need the bond to be beautiful tonight. I do not need your anger to leave before I step. The words entered me slowly. I can sit in the hate with you, she repeated, if that is where you are. A tear slipped down my cheek. I wiped it away angrily. You say impossible things. I am learning from you. That almost made me laugh. Almost. When we reached Moonville, the street was still full of women. Not the same crowd as before. Some had left. Others had arrived. Night workers with the tired faces, nurses after shifts, students wrapped in blankets, older women holding umbrellas, Omega standing in careful clusters, alphas at the edges, quietly watching for trouble, betas handing out paper cups of tea, candles sat on the pavement despite the rain, protected beneath glass jars. Someone had taped a sign to the front doors. Goodbye, midnight mercy, welcome night room. My knees weakened. Seraphine moved, stopped. I took her arm because I needed to. She let me. No triumph moved through the bond, only steadiness. Junie walked ahead as if she owned the street. Ama followed with Cassiane. The two older women had begun speaking in low tones, which worried me because anything they agreed on would probably change the city by lunch. Vesa was on the phone again. Yes, the trust language will include listener seats. No, Vale Meridian will not appoint them. Yes, Seraphine understands what independent means. She asked for the word first. Seraphine looked mildly offended. Vesa ignored her. Orla opened the station doors. Inside, Moonvale looked stripped, not physically, spiritually. The lobby screens were dark. The posters had been taken down. Calla's office door stood open, empty. The desk cleared so quickly it looked staged. Nessa waited near reception with red eyes and a stack of access cards in her hands. She's gone, Nessa said. Calla? I asked. She nodded, escorted out by board security before dawn. She told everyone she was resigning to protect the station. Cassiane snorted. Of course. Nessa looked at me. I know it is not enough. No, I said. It is not. Her eyes filled. But it is a beginning, I added. She nodded quickly, like she needed permission to hope, and hated that she needed it. Seraphine looked toward the elevators. Bored? Vesa lowered her phone. Waiting in conference room 4. Terrified, defensive, and mostly undercaffeinated. Junie lifted the thermos. Good. Weak prey. Amma sighed. Junie. What? I said good. Cassiane looked at Junie. You and I may get along. I have not decided yet. That means yes. I almost smiled. Almost. Conference room 4 had a long glass table, too many chairs, and a view of the street where the women still waited in rainlight. 3 board women sat at one side. The station lawyer sat at the end, face pale, shoulders hunched, as if she had aged 10 years overnight. 2 department heads stood by the windows. No one sat in the chair at the head of the table, Calla's chair. I did not sit there. Neither did Seraphine. That became the first decision of the new room. Though no one said it aloud, we sat along the side, together but not centered. The oldest board woman, Seraphine Vale, cleared her throat. Mrs. Venn, she said, on behalf of Moonvale Radio, I want to express. No, I said. She stopped. I was too tired for ceremonial regret, Do not start with apology language you have not earned. Taryn's mouth closed. Cassiane's eyes glittered. Seraphine did not smile, but the bond warmed faintly. I placed both hands on the table. I am not here to be comforted by the board that let Calla build a knife with my name on it. I am here because the station has listeners outside who still believe something worth saving happened in these walls. The station lawyer swallowed. We recognize serious mistakes were made. Mistakes are when a file goes to the wrong folder, Cassiane said. What happened here had structure. Taryn looked at her, Mrs. Roane. Cassiane smiled without warmth. You remember my name? How inconvenient. The room tightened. Vessa slid a document across the table. Here are the terms. One board woman frowned. Terms? Seraphine spoke. Vale Meridian is prepared to acquire Moonvile's debts before predatory buyers or hostile sponsors intervene. The board women exchanged glances. Taryn's expression sharpened. At what cost? Transfer into independent trust governance. Silence. The lawyer looked confused. Val Meridian does not intend to retain ownership. No, Seraphine said. The board woman beside Taryn leaned forward. Why would you purchase a distressed station and transfer it away? Seraphine looked at me. Then at Cassiane. Then back to the board. Because I have purchased too many rooms in my life and mistaken access for repair. No one knew what to do with that. Vessa tapped the document. The proposed trust includes staff corporate receipts, listener representation, independent legal oversight, and protected programming categories for crisis, grief, heat safety, labour rights, and women-led night broadcasting. The name Midnight Mercy will not be used without Liora Ven's consent. Studio 9 will be protected as a public interest broadcast room. The lawyer blinked. That is unusual. Junie leaned forward. Good. Taryn looked at me. Miss Venn, do you want this? The question mattered. Maybe, she asked, because cameras were not present and exhaustion had made her honest. Maybe, she asked, because she finally understood that pretending consent existed had become dangerous. Maybe she simply wanted the deal to move. It still mattered. I want the room protected, I said. I want the staff protected if they tell the truth. I want every file Calla used, and every file Moonveil kept on listeners sealed until an independent review determines how to handle them. I want Nessa and anyone else pressured into harming me, or others given a path to testify without being destroyed. Nessa, standing near the door, began to cry silently. I continued. I want the listeners outside told the truth without turning them into an audience. For your redemption. I want Midnight Mercy ended by my choice, not suspended by yours. And I want the night room to begin without being owned by the alpha beside me. Seraphine's eyes softened. Taryn studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. We can discuss. No, Vessa said. Everyone looked at her. She pushed the documents farther across the table. You can sign. The second board woman bristled. That is aggressive. Cassiane said. You publicly exploited a grieving Omega and then tried to frame her bond as instability. Aggressive is the polite version. Junie muttered. I like her. Arma whispered. We know, the board did not sign immediately. Of course they did not. Women who kept rooms locked rarely handed over keys without checking whether the lock could still be sold. There were arguments, legal language, accusations wrapped as concerns, questions about liability, questions about brand value, questions about whether listener seats would create instability. At that, I laughed, not kindly. Instability, I said. There it is again. Taryn looked tired. Mrs. Venn, no. You keep using that word whenever women who were affected by your decisions might get a say in them. The room went quiet. Seraphine leaned back slightly, letting me have the table. I looked at the bored women, one by one. You are afraid listeners will not be reasonable. Maybe they will not. Maybe grief is not always reasonable. Maybe the women who called my show while sitting on bathroom floors will not speak in clean meeting language. Maybe they will cry. Maybe they will demand answers you cannot give without shame. I placed my palm flat on the table, but the station's already tried, being run by reasonable women who could read a personnel file into a microphone and call it concern. I am not impressed by reasonable anymore. Cassiane murmured, that one too. What? I asked. For the wall. Despite myself, I almost smiled. By 8:35, the board signed the emergency transition agreement. By 8:50, Vale Meridian acquired Moonvale's debt. By 9:05, the acquisition transfer was legally bound to the trust. By 9:17, Calla's remaining access was revoked. By 9:30, the public statement was drafted. No one asked me to smile for a photo. No one asked Seraphine to stand behind me like an owner. The statement went out as text. Moonvale Radio will transition into independent, cooperative trust governance. Studio 9 will become a protected broadcast space for women-led night programming. Midnight Mercy has ended by Liora Ven's choice. The night room will begin when she is ready. When she is ready. I read that line 3 times. Not tonight. Not now. Not because the city wanted more. When she is ready. My throat closed. Seraphine stood across the room, speaking quietly with Vesa. She looked exhausted. Pale. Still beautiful in the unfair way storms were beautiful from behind glass. But there was something stripped down about her now. No empire glow, no untouched alpha myth. Just a woman standing amid the consequences of what she had inherited, chosen, failed, repaired, and still had left to face. Cassiane came to stand beside me. She did not write that line, she said. I looked at her. When she is ready. Cassiane nodded toward Vesa. Vesa did. Good. Yes. Seraphine would have made it sound like a vow and embarrassed everyone. A laugh escaped me. It felt strange. Cassiane watched me. You still love her. I went very still. I did not say that. No, that is a large word for 3 nights. Cassiane looked toward Studio 9 through the glass wall. Time is overrated when a voice reaches bone. But love is not proven by intensity. It is proven by structure. I frowned. That sounds like something you have been waiting years to say to her. It is something I wish someone had said to me before I mistook a microphone for enough protection. Her rough voice softened. Do not trust the bond alone. Bonds are powerful, but they are not ethics. They are not consent. They are not governance. They are not repair. I know. Good. Then love her if you want, but make her build tables, not monuments. I looked at Seraphine. As if she felt my gaze, she looked up. The bond warmed faintly. Not demanding. There. I do not know if I can forgive everything her name touches, I whispered. Cassiane's expression did not soften. Then do not. I turned. She held my gaze. Forgiveness is not the rent you pay to stay in love. The sentence struck so hard I had to look away. Cassiane continued. You can demand truth and still want her hand. You can need distance and still choose her later. You can love someone and refuse to let their guilt eat your grief. All of that can stand in the same room. Both truths can stand in the same room. She had said that to Seraphine. Now she gave it to me. I swallowed. Do you forgive her? Cassiane looked across the room at Seraphine. Seraphine was listening to Vesa, but her posture had shifted slightly, as if part of her had heard the question through old guilt. No, Cassiane said. Then, after a pause, but I no longer need my hatred to keep the truth alive. It was not forgiveness. It was something more useful. At 10:12, I entered Studio 9. Alone. I needed to. The room was exactly as I had left it and completely changed. The same narrow space, the same patched microphone, the same tired chair, the same rain-streaked window, the red on-air sign above the glass. But someone had placed flowers on the desk. Not expensive roses, small white lilies from the florist on Briar Lane. A folded note sat beside them. From Junie, because apparently she had arranged everything before anyone else had finished processing the night. No room is sacred because of walls. It becomes sacred when women stop lying inside it. I touched the microphone. For years, I had thought this room was all I had. Then I thought I had to say goodbye to survive. Now it stood before me, not as a cage, not as property, not as a mercy granted by management, but as a room waiting to learn what freedom sounded like. I sat in the chair, my chair, not because Moonveal gave it back, because I had returned differently. I placed my hands on the desk and closed my eyes. I remembered the first night, 2:17, cold tea, rain, a script about goodbyes. My voice breaking where the whole city could hear. I remembered thinking no one had ever stayed for me. Then the city called. Then Seraphine came. Then Calla sharpened her smile. Then Cassiane opened the old tower. Then my mother's name returned from a file I had never been allowed to see. 3 nights. Only 3 nights. And yet the woman who sat in Studio 9 now was not the same woman who had cried into the microphone. She was not stronger in the simple way stories liked to make women stronger. She was more crowded, with grief, with anger, with witnesses, with questions, with a bond that did not solve anything and somehow still mattered. The door opened softly. Seraphine stood outside, not entering. I looked over my shoulder. "Are you going to stand there all morning?" Her mouth curved faintly. I was waiting to be invited. I turned fully. The morning light made her look softer and more exhausted. There were shadows beneath her eyes. Her coat was wrinkled. Her silver hair had escaped its careful shape. The Frost Alpha looked like she had fought an empire, bought a station, handed it away, and still feared stepping into a room that mattered to me without permission. My heart could not bear it. "Come in," I said. She did, slowly. Studio 9 seemed smaller with her inside. Or maybe everything felt larger now. She stopped near the producer's chair, not touching the desk, not claiming space. I looked at her. "You bought the studio." "I bought the building. The trust owns it now." "You bought the lock and handed over the key." "Technically, lawyers handed over the key." "Yes," she said. "Vessa would insist on accuracy." I smiled, then the smile trembled. Seraphine saw. "What is it?" I looked at the on-air sign. "I do not know who I am without Midnight Mercy." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You are the woman who ended it. That hurt, then healed, strangely. And the woman who built what came after." I turned toward her. "And to you?" Her eyes softened. "To me? Yes." I hated how small the question sounded. Seraphine crossed the room by only 1 step, then stopped. "To me, you are Liora Ven," she said, the first voice that reached me without asking for fear. The woman who taught a city the difference between being amplified and being owned. The Omega who said goodbye to a cage and made everyone call it a door. The woman whose grief I will not touch unless invited. The woman I want and cannot keep unless she chooses to stay. My breath caught. The bond opened between us, warm and bright and terrifyingly gentle. "You want me?" I whispered. Seraphine's control fractured, just enough. "Yes." No alpha command, no possessive growl, no polished speech, just yes. I stepped closer. If I choose you, I said, I will still choose myself. I would expect nothing less. If I love you, I will still argue with you. I am increasingly aware. If you try to protect me by making decisions for me, I will make your life difficult. A faint smile touched her mouth. Cassiane has offered lessons. I am serious, so am I. I looked at her hands, long fingers, still. Waiting, always waiting now. That was when I realized love, if this became love, would not be the absence of fear. It would be the room where fear was allowed to speak, without taking the microphone from trust. I held out my hand. Seraphine looked at it like dawn had offered itself directly to her. Then she took it. The bond did not snap. It did not burn. It settled, like a signal finally finding clear air. I stepped closer. This time, there were no cameras, no crowd, no Calla, no tower, no city holding its breath, only Studio 9, the room where I had cried, the room where everything began. I lifted my face. Seraphine did not move until I whispered, yes. Then she kissed me, softly, carefully, as if a kiss could be a question even after being answered. Her lips were warm, trembling despite all her control. One hand rose to my cheek, stopped just short, then touched only when I leaned into her palm. The bond filled with light so sudden I had to grip her jacket. She drew back first, not far, enough to let me breathe. Her forehead rested against mine. Still yours? She whispered. I smiled through tears. My voice? Yes. My room? Yes. My heart? Her breath caught. I kissed her again, shorter, braver. Then I whispered, mine first, shared if you earn it. Seraphine laughed, a real laugh, quiet and stunned and beautiful. I will spend my life earning it. Do not make it dramatic. I am afraid I am naturally dramatic. You bought a radio station before breakfast. For a trust. For a trust, I agreed. Still dramatic. She smiled, and for the first time, Seraphine Vale looked young. Not 19 and cruel with fear, not 32 and frozen by power, just a woman in a radio studio, holding the hand of someone who had heard her worst truth and stayed long enough to ask for better. But love did not end the morning. It did not erase the file. It did not bring my mother back. At 11:03, Vesa knocked on the studio glass. I stepped away from Seraphine, not with shame, but because the world was still waiting. Vesa entered, carrying a tablet and a folder. Her expression was careful. That terrified me more than alarm would have. We found the reviewer, she said. My mouth went dry. Seraphine's hand remained at her side. Open, available. Not assuming, I took it. Who? I asked. Vesa looked at Seraphine first, then at me. Lysandra Vale's office authorized the protocol. The specific delay was signed by a health media liaison named Liora Seraphine. She died 2 years ago. My chest tightened. Dead. Another dead woman between me and answers. But? I asked. Because there was always a but. Vesa's eyes softened. But there are notes attached. Your mother's file was flagged because you were already working at Moonvale. I stared. What? The system identified you as a minor broadcast employee with rising listener trust. It marked your mother's case as reputationally sensitive because if she died after a denied transfer and you spoke publicly, the story might damage St. Aurea and its media partners. The room swayed. Seraphine's hand tightened around mine. Not too much, enough to say she was there. So they knew me, I whispered. Yes. I was nobody. Cassiane's voice came from the doorway. You were never nobody to systems that profit from predicting which pain might become public. I looked at her. She had followed Vesa, rough coat still damp, copper hair tucked behind one ear. They did not delay her because you mattered as a person, Cassiane said. They delayed the decision because you mattered as potential noise. Potential noise. My mother's life had been weighed against whether I might become inconvenient. I sat down slowly. Seraphine knelt before me, not touching. Liora, I looked at her. There is no clean place for this anger to go, I said. No, part of it wants your name. I know. Part of it wants Calla. Yes. Part of it wants a dead woman. Yes. Part of it wants me for not screaming sooner. Seraphine's face changed. No. The word was sharp. Then she caught herself, softer but no less fierce. No, not you. I laughed once, broken. You do not get to choose where grief points. No, she said. But I can refuse to let grief lie about you while it searches. That sentence broke me. Not loudly, just enough that I leaned forward and pressed my forehead against hers. She stayed perfectly still. I whispered, I was paying bills while they were making notes. Her eyes closed. I know. I kept asking them to transfer her. I know. They said wait. The word tore. Wait. What women were always told when systems were deciding whether their pain deserved movement. Wait. Be patient. Be reasonable. Be grateful. Be quiet. Seraphine's voice was a thread. I am sorry. Not enough. Everything not enough. But true. I pulled back. I want her name in the investigation. Your mother? Yes. But not as content. Not as my tragic reason. Not as branding. Then she will be named only where you allow. I looked at Vesa. Can we do that? Vesa nodded. Yes. We can separate public disclosure from protected investigation. Cassiane said, we should create a private family review channel. No names released without consent. No public archive until women or families decide. I nodded. That was structure. Love needed structure. Grief needed it too. By noon we had a plan. Not a perfect one. Perfect plans were often cages with polished floors. This one had rough edges, arguments, safeguards, names crossed out and rewritten, responsibilities distributed so no single woman, not even Seraphine, could turn the room into property. The night room would open publicly in 1 week. Until then, the trust would establish intake, legal review, trauma support, and independent oversight. Studio 9 would be used only for short signal tests and transition statements. Cassiane would serve as witness trustee. If the agreement included a clause giving her authority to publicly object if Vale Meridian overreached, Junie demanded soup breaks be recognized as operational necessity. Vesa refused to put that in the legal document. Amma wrote it into the informal room rules. Orla added emergency exits to every plan. Seraphine signed away control, again and again and again. Every signature looked calm. I felt everyone through the bond. Not pain exactly. A stripping. A woman removing rings from fingers she had been taught were only safe when closed. At 12:47, Cassiane placed a folder in front of Seraphine. Seraphine looked down, then went still. What is this? My 11-minute transcript, Cassiane said. Seraphine did not touch it. Cassiane continued. The original, not the copy. I kept it, because I thought one day I would throw it at your grave. Seraphine looked up. Cassiane's mouth twitched. Plans change. Cassiane, no. Her damaged voice turned sharp. I am not forgiving you. Do not make that face. Seraphine closed her mouth. Cassiane pushed the folder closer. I am giving it to the trust archive, not to you. But I want you to read it before the public does. Seraphine's throat moved. Why? Because your name is in it. The room went silent. Seraphine looked down at the folder as if it might burn her. Cassiane's eyes were steady. I almost named you that night. I thought naming you would destroy you. I wanted to. I was angry enough to enjoy the thought. Her voice roughened. But I did not know then that your mother had made you sign half the orders she wanted the city to blame you for. You were guilty. You were also being made useful. Seraphine whispered, "Do not soften it. I am not. I am sharpening it properly." Cassiane leaned over the table. "You were responsible for what you signed. Lysandra was responsible for the machine that taught you signing was survival. Both truths. Same room. My eyes stung. There it was again. The only kind of justice this story seemed to understand. Not purity, not absolution. Truths standing together without letting one erase the other. Seraphine opened the folder. I watched her read. Line by line, the Frost Alpha disappeared. Not dramatically, but I knew. I felt the places where Cassiane's 11-minute voice reached into Seraphine's old memory and rearranged the furniture. When she finished, she closed the folder with trembling hands. "I should have stood beside you," Seraphine said. Cassiane's face was unreadable. "Yes, I did not. No, I will stand beside the archive now." Cassiane looked at me. "Ask Liora if she wants you there." Seraphine turned to me. "Even now, even in her guilt, especially in her guilt." "Do you?" she asked. I thought about my mother's file, Cassiane's transcript, the women outside, the kiss in Studio 9. The danger of needing a powerful woman and the danger of pretending power did not matter. "Yes," I said, "but not at the center." Seraphine nodded. Beside. At 1:30, the first official nightroom signal test was scheduled. Not the full show, just a confirmation, a breath. The city had been waiting all morning. We knew, because Vessa's monitor showed thousands of listeners parked on dead air, old feeds, community relays, and mirrored pages that displayed nothing but a black screen and one sentence. "The room will open when she is ready." I was not ready, not fully, but ready enough to tell the truth about that too. Studio 9 filled slowly. Junie took the soundboard. Amma sat in the corner with tea. Cassiane stood near the wall, arms crossed, pretending she was not emotionally affected by the sight of a protected studio. Vessa leaned by the door, tablet in hand. Orla stood outside, visible through the glass. Seraphine sat in the producer's chair because I had invited her, no one else. Not the board, not sponsors, not reporters, no audience in the room beyond the women who had earned presence by staying when spectacle ended. I sat before the microphone. The red on-air sign glowed. This time it did not accuse me. It asked whether I was ready. I looked at Junie. She nodded. Amma touched 2 fingers to her heart. Cassiane lifted her chin. Seraphine's eyes met mine through the glass. The bond warmed, not pushing. "There," I turned on the microphone. "Mero City," I said. "This is Liora Ven." Somewhere, I knew, the city leaned close. Midnight mercy has ended. The night room is not open yet. Not fully. We are building it carefully because trust should not be rushed. Simply because attention is loud. I breathed. If you sent messages last night, we received many of them. If you have documents, memories, recordings, or names, we are creating safe ways to hold them. If you are not ready to send anything, you owe no one speed. If you are afraid, we believe you. If you are angry, we believe that too. My voice trembled. I let it. There will be an investigation into Moonville Radio. There will be an independent review of Vale Meridian linked media health protocols, including cases like my mother's. I will not share her story beyond what I choose. I ask you to give every woman who comes to this room the same dignity. Seraphine's eyes lowered briefly, then lifted again. I continued. The night room will not be perfect. No room built by wounded women can promise that, but it will have rules, consent, witness, oversight, rest, disagreement, Soup, apparently. Junie made an offended sound through the glass. I smiled. A tiny thing. The first real one that did not hurt. And when we make mistakes, we will not call them care to avoid repair. Cassiane's expression softened. I looked at Seraphine, and no power in this room will be allowed to hide behind love. Seraphine held my gaze, accepted. I leaned closer. If you are listening in the dark, keep breathing. We are building a place where the night does not get the final word. I paused. And if no one told you today? My voice softened. I am glad you exist. I turned off the microphone. The on-air sign faded. For a few seconds, Studio 9 was silent. Then Vessa's tablet began to chime. Not violently, not like scandal. Steadily, messages appeared. We are here. Take your time. I am glad you exist too. Soup rule important. My mother had a file too. Thank you for saying, not ready is allowed. The room is already open. I covered my mouth. Seraphine stood from the producer's chair. She did not come to me immediately. She looked at the door, then at me, asking whether the room after broadcast belonged to quiet. I held out my hand. She came. Behind the glass, Junie pretended to study the board. Arma smiled knowingly. Cassiane rolled her eyes and looked at the ceiling. Vessa said, I am still in the room. Noted, Seraphine said. I laughed. The sound moved through Studio 9 like sunlight finding dust. Seraphine stopped in front of me. I am proud of you, she said softly. I know. Her brows lifted. I squeezed her hand. I felt it. The bond warmed. Then I added, I am angry too. I know. You felt it? Yes. Good. Good? You should know both. She bowed her head. I want to know both. I believed her. Not forever. Not blindly. In that moment, that was enough. The afternoon passed in fragments. Legal meetings, staff meetings, listener statements, security planning, review boards, Cassiane arguing over archive language, Junie threatening to ban anyone from Studio 9 who used the word monetization, Amma quietly becoming the moral center of every room she entered. Vessa discovering that trust governance was somehow more exhausting than corporate warfare. Orla ensuring every exit remained clear. Seraphine signing documents until her hand cramped, and refusing to mention it until I placed tea beside her without asking. At 5, the crowd outside had thinned but not disappeared. Women left flowers, notes, old radios, cassettes, printed emails, photographs of mothers, sisters, wives, daughters, friends. Not for spectacle, for memory. The lobby became a temporary archive wall. Cassiane stood before it for a long time. I joined her. She held one cassette in her hand, label faded. 11 minutes. I looked at it. Is that? A copy, she said. Someone in South Quay kept it. Sent it this morning. Her rough voice caught. I thought the city forgot. It did not. No, she whispered. It was taught to stop mentioning it. I stood beside her. Will you listen? She looked at the cassette. Not today. Okay. She glanced at me. You are learning, slowly. Slow is acceptable. From Cassiane, that was almost affection. At sunset, the rain stopped. Mero City glowed gold for the first time in 3 days. The windows of Moonville caught the light and threw it back across the street, turning puddles into broken mirrors. Seraphine found me in Studio 9 again. Of course she did. I sat on the floor beneath the desk, knees pulled to my chest, not crying, not speaking, just too full of everything. She paused in the doorway. May I enter? You already own nothing here, I said. You can still ask. I intend to. Then yes. She sat on the floor beside me. The sight of Seraphine Vale sitting on stained radio carpet in an expensive suit should have been ridiculous. It was. That helped. I looked at her. You look uncomfortable. I am. You can sit in a boardroom for 16 hours but not on a floor? Boardrooms rarely have mysterious stains. That one is tea. And the other? Best not to know. She looked faintly alarmed. I laughed. Then the laugh softened. We sat in silence. Outside, the city moved toward evening. Inside, the room breathed around us. I keep thinking about my mother, I said. Seraphine turned her head toward me. I stared at the opposite wall. I keep trying to remember her voice without the hospital in it. What was she like? I closed my eyes. She sang badly. Seraphine's expressions softened. Badly, terribly, loudly, with absolute confidence. She made tea too sweet. She hated silence during breakfast. She used to call my radio voice my moon voice. She said, I sounded like I was trying not to wake the stars. My throat tightened. She would have liked Junie. Everyone should be so fortunate. She would have distrusted you. Seraphine nodded. She sounds wise. I smiled sadly. She would have made you eat too. I am beginning to understand that feeding people is a form of interrogation among the women who love you. It is. I looked down at my hands. If the investigation proves your company delayed her transfer, I will face it. I know. That does not make it hurt less. No, I may hate you some days. Seraphine's voice was quiet. I will stay outside the door on those days if you ask. What if I ask you to come in? Then I will come in. What if I do not know what I want? Then I will wait where you can still find me. I looked at her. She meant it. That was the terrifying thing. She meant the waiting too, not just the grand gestures, not just towers and acquisitions and legal warfare, the quiet places, the hallways outside grief, the days when love was not romantic, only patient. I leaned my head against her shoulder. She went still. Then slowly, carefully, she relaxed. Her cheek rested lightly against my hair. No kiss, no promise, just breath. After a while, I whispered, Do you think the bond chose us because we could fix this? No. I looked up. Seraphine's eyes were on the dark window. I think the bond chose us because your voice reached something in me before I could stop it. Everything after that is our responsibility, not fate's. I liked that answer. It did not make us special enough to excuse mistakes. It made us responsible enough to continue. At nightfall, the Trust held its first informal meeting in Studio 9. It was chaotic. Junie insisted the room needed better chairs. Arma insisted everyone needed food before voting on anything. Cassiane insisted sentiment should not be confused with policy. Vesa insisted policy could not be written while Junie was talking over every legal term. Orla insisted the hallway was not secure enough for open meetings. Seraphine insisted she should leave if her presence influenced the Trust too much. Everyone told her to sit down. At the same time, I laughed so hard I had to wipe my eyes. Seraphine looked startled. Then, slowly, she sat, not at the head. There was no head. We arranged the chairs in a circle because Amma said rectangles made people perform authority. Cassiane disagreed on principle, then admitted the circle was less irritating. The first vote was not about branding, not programming, not money. It was about rest. Amma proposed that the night room would not run every night at first, no matter how much the city wanted it, because a room built from exhausted women would recreate the harm it claimed to resist. Junie seconded. Cassiane tried to object, then stopped. I hate that you are right. Motion passed. The second vote was about emergency protocol. Orla led it. The third about archive consent. Cassiane led it. The fourth about infrastructure. Vesa led it. The fifth about whether Seraphine would have any emergency override power. I watched her face as the question entered the room. She did not speak. Cassiane did. No, Vesa nodded. No. Junie looked at Seraphine. No offence. Seraphine said some offence would be appropriate. Junie smiled. Good. No. Amma said no, but she may have emergency advisory access if 2 trustees invite it. Everyone looked at me. I thought of towers, locks, keys, hands opening. I agree, I said. Seraphine bowed her head. Thank you. For limiting you, for trusting structure over my intentions. Cassiane pointed at her. Put that in the charter. Vesa typed it immediately. By the end of the meeting, the night room was no longer just a name. It had bones, rules, women, limits, a future. At 11:58 p.m, I returned to the microphone one final time that day. Not for the city, for myself. The room was empty except for Seraphine in the producer's chair. Everyone else had gone to find food, sleep, or another argument. The red on-air sign was off. I did not turn it on. I touched the microphone. Then I whispered, "Thank you." Seraphine heard. Of course she did. For what? She asked softly. The nights it carried me. She nodded. Then after a moment, "May I ask something?" "Yes." "When did you know you were going to end it?" I thought about that. Not in the tower. Not when Moonville suspended it. Not when Calla read my file. Maybe it had begun the first night I cried, and listeners called to hold me, instead of needing me perfect. Maybe a room built on mercy had already outgrown its name the moment mercy became mutual. I think I knew when I realized saying goodbye did not mean abandoning them. I said. It meant refusing to keep meeting them in a room built by people who studied our pain. Seraphine nodded slowly. And you? What about me? When did you know you were going to buy the station? A faint shadow of guilt crossed her face. The second Calla announced suspension. I stared. That early? Yes. You let me cry in the tower while knowing I had a plan. Not permission. That answer settled somewhere deep. Plan, not permission. You are learning, I said. So I have been told, by terrifying women, exclusively. I smiled. She stood and walked to the studio door. For a moment, I thought she was leaving. Instead, she locked it, then turned back to me. My breath caught. Not fear, not quite. She noticed. Privacy, she said. Not pressure, I know. Do you? I did. That was what made my voice softer. Yes. She crossed the room slowly, stopped in front of me. Liora. I looked up. Seraphine. The bond opened. Not like fire now, like a window. A cold room discovering sunlight. I want to kiss you again, she said. The honesty curled through me warm and low. Ask me then. Her eyes darkened. May I kiss you? Yes, this kiss was not like the first. The first had been a question answered in a trembling room. This one was still a question, but braver. Her hand slid to my cheek, stopping once until I leaned into it. My fingers curled into the front of her jacket. The bond hummed, deep and steady, not swallowing thought but brightening it. She kissed me like a woman who knew wanting could become taking if she forgot to listen. So she listened. To my breath, to my hand tightening, to my small sound when she almost pulled away too soon. She smiled against my mouth. I whispered, "Do not look so pleased. I am trying to be respectful. You can be respectful and pleased. That may be the best news I have received all day." I laughed into the kiss. She froze for 1 second, as if joy had touched her unexpectedly. Then she kissed me again, and this time I felt the wall inside her give way by another inch. Not collapse. Never that fast, but open. When we finally separated, I rested my forehead against her chest. Her heartbeat was not calm. That pleased me more than it should have. "You are not as composed as everyone thinks," I whispered. "No." "Good." She pressed a careful kiss to my hair. "Is this all right?" "Yes." "Still?" "Yes," she exhaled. I may ask too often, asks anyway. I will. Outside, thunder rolled far away. Not close enough to threaten, just enough to remind the night it had once been dangerous here. At 2:17 in the morning, I woke in Studio 9. I had fallen asleep on the small couch in the producer's booth with Seraphine's coated over me. She was awake in the chair beside the door, reading trust documents on a tablet with the grim focus of a woman trying to defeat bureaucracy through eye contact. "You did not sleep," I said. She looked up. "Neither did you for long. That is not an answer." "No." I sat up, pulling the coat around my shoulders. It smelled like her. Cedar smoke, cold bergamot. Rain faded into wool. "You can sleep," I said. "I know. Do you? I am improving. You are avoiding." She lowered the tablet. "Yes." The honesty was getting dangerous. I stood, walked to her, and held out my hand. "Come here." Her eyes flickered. To the couch. Seraphine. Not the battlefield. I was not going to say anything. "You looked like you were." She took my hand. We sat together on the too small couch. Not lying down, not crossing lines we had not named, just shoulder to shoulder under her coat. For a while, we listened to the quiet. Studio quiet was different when not broadcasting. Every wire seemed to remember voices. Every wall held breath. "Liora," Seraphine said softly. "If the investigation finds my signature somewhere near your mother's file." I went still, she continued, because running from the sentence would have been easier, and she no longer chose easy. "If I signed something, without knowing its consequence, it will still be my signature." "Yes, I will not ask you to separate intent from impact before you are ready." "Good. I will not ask the bond to defend me." "Good. I will stay for the truth even if staying means losing you." My throat closed. I looked at her. That is a terrible romantic line. It was not intended romantically. I know. That is why it worked. Her expression cracked into surprise, then softness. "I do not want to lose you," she whispered. "I know. I am trying very hard not to make that your burden." I reached for her hand under the coat. "You can want me without making me responsible for your fear." Her fingers curled around mine. "I am learning, slowly." She almost smiled. "Slow is acceptable, I have been told. Cassiane is infecting us, with governance, with emotional violence. That too." I leaned against her shoulder. "At 3 we finally slept. Not deeply, not peacefully, but together. And when morning came, nothing was fixed. That mattered. Stories often lie about dawn. They make it sound like light solves what darkness revealed. It does not. Dawn only shows you the mess clearly. The investigation had barely begun. Calla was gone, but not powerless. Lysandra Vale's old systems remained buried in places we had not found yet. Cassiane still did not forgive. My mother was still dead. Seraphine was still the daughter of the empire that touched my grief. And I was still an Omega, with a voice that had become larger than I knew how to carry. But Studio 9 was ours now, not mine alone, not Seraphine's, ours in the only way that mattered, held by women who had decided that rooms should not belong to the cruel, simply because they arrived with keys. At noon, the official opening date for the night room was announced. 1 week, 7 days to build intake, 7 days to rest, 7 days to prepare, 7 days for the city to understand that not every wound would be turned into immediate content. The announcement ended with a line Cassiane hated and Amma loved. "The night is long. We will not rush the dawn." Vessa blamed me. I blamed Amma. Amma accepted proudly. That evening I walked out of Moonvale through the front doors. No cameras this time. Or fewer at least. The crowd had mostly gone home. Only a few women remained, leaving notes under the covered archive wall. One young Omega stood near the steps, holding a small radio. She looked no older than 19. When she saw me, she froze. I stopped. "Hi," I said gently. Her eyes filled. "I listened," she whispered. The words took me back to Seraphine in the alley. I listened. I smiled. "Thank you." The young woman held out the radio. It was my mother's. She heard Cassiane's 11 minutes. She used to say there was a woman who tried to save the city, and the city pretended it was static. Cassiane, who had followed a few steps behind, went very still. The young woman looked at her. Recognition dawned. "Oh," she whispered, "it was you." Cassiane's face became unreadable. The young woman held out the radio with both hands. She kept it all these years. She died last winter. I think she would want you to have it. Cassiane did not move. For a moment, I thought she would refuse. Then Junie, appearing from nowhere as usual, murmured, "Take the damn radio." Cassiane shot her a glare. Junie glared back. Cassiane took the radio. Her hands shook. "Your mother had poor taste in relics," she said. The young woman smiled through tears. "She had excellent taste in voices." Cassiane looked away. The radio was small, scratched, ordinary. It might have carried weather reports, songs, old advertisements, recipes, emergency warnings, and once, maybe, 11 minutes of a woman refusing to disappear. Cassiane held it like it weighed more than the tower. Seraphine stood beside me, watching, not intruding. Cassiane looked at her, then, after a long silence, held out the radio. Seraphine did not take it. Cassiane's brows drew together. "I am not giving it to you. I know." "Then why are you looking like that?" "Because I do not want to touch what is not mine." Cassiane stared. Then she laughed once. Rough, unsteady, late, she said again. But this time, it sounded different. Not forgiven, not absolved, but less alone. The young Omega asked if the night room would take calls from people who had no documents, only stories passed down. "Yes," I said. Cassiane added, "Memory is evidence when enough women were told to forget the same thing." Vessa, passing behind us, said, "That is legally complicated." Junie said, "Put it on the wall." Vessa groaned. Seraphine looked at me. I smiled. The city did not feel healed, but it felt listenable. That night I went home. Not to Seraphine's penthouse, not to a safe house, not to Studio 9. Home. My small apartment above the closed tailor shop, my crooked shelf, my 2 struggling plants, my kitchen table with scratches and tea stains, my bed that had held all my fear before the city knew my name. Seraphine walked me to the door and stopped outside. Orla waited downstairs. Vessa had threatened to install better locks and had been told by Junie to ask like a normal person. So Seraphine asked, "May I have someone replace the broken front camera tomorrow?" I stared at her. She looked very serious. I laughed so hard I had to lean against the door. Her brows lifted. "What?" That was painfully restrained. "I am in agony. You may have someone replace the camera." "Thank you." "But no one enters my apartment without asking." "Understood. No mysterious women standing nearby without telling me." She paused. "Define nearby." "Seraphine, understood." I smiled. Then my smile faded into something softer. "Do you want to come in?" Her entire body stilled. The question hung between us, delicate and heavy. "I want to," she said. But tonight, I think you need one room that has not been transformed by me." My throat tightened. She was right. I hated that she was right. I loved that she said it. "Tomorrow?" I asked. "If you ask, I might. I will hope quietly." "You do nothing quietly." "I will attempt." I stepped closer. No cameras, no trust documents, no burned towers, just my hallway and the soft hum of old lights. I kissed her cheek. Her eyes closed. The bond warmed. "Good night, Seraphine." Her voice was rough. "Good night, Liora." I went inside alone, and for the first time in a long time, alone did not feel like abandoned. It felt like mine. I made tea, too sweet, the way my mother liked it. I sat at my kitchen table. I opened a blank notebook and wrote the first rule of the night room by hand. No woman's voice will be used faster than her consent can follow. Then the second. No powerful woman gets to be trusted without structure. Then the third. Soup is not legally required but morally recommended. I smiled. Then I cried, quietly, for my mother, for the old room, for the new one, for Seraphine waiting outside the life she wanted to enter until I opened the door. For myself, because I had survived 3 nights that tried to turn me into a symbol, and still somehow remained a woman who liked sweet tea and bad jokes and rain. After midnight, at 2:17, my phone buzzed. "Seraphine, are you awake?" I looked at the message and smiled through tears. "Me, yes. Seraphine, breathe first." "I did, me. I did. Seraphine, good." A pause. Then, "Seraphine, I am outside." I stood so fast my chair nearly fell. "Me. What?" "Seraphine, not your building. Across the street." Orla said this counts as nearby. "I disagree, but am respecting your definition." I ran to the window. There she was, beneath the awning of the closed bakery. Black coat buttoned, silver hair tucked under a dark scarf, looking absurdly out of place and heartbreakingly real. My phone buzzed again. "Seraphine." "I wanted to be close enough that the bond did not ache, far enough that your room remains yours." I pressed my hand to the glass. Across the street, she looked up. Our eyes met through rain and darkness and distance. The bond settled, not demanding, not lonely, present. I typed with one hand. "Me, you are ridiculous." Seraphine looked at her phone, then smiled, small, private. Mine to see if I chose. Seraphine, naturally dramatic. I laughed. In my own apartment, in my own room, with my own voice. The night outside did not feel empty anymore. It felt inhabited. At the same time, not far across Mero City, Studio 9 rested behind locked doors that no longer belonged to Kala. The East Tower stood by the river, with its ghosts awake and no longer alone. Cassiane slept, maybe, with an old radio beside her. Junie and Amma argued over trust bylaws at their kitchen table. Vesa probably had not slept at all. Orla probably pretended not to worry about any of us and failed. And the city, the enormous wounded city, held its breath, not waiting for a saviour, waiting for a room. 1 week later, the night room opened. No dramatic theme music, no polished advertisement, no sponsor, no perfumed smooth, voice telling listeners that healing could be bought. Just Studio 9. A clean table, 3 microphones, a kettle in the corner, a sign handwritten by Emma and framed by Junie, despite Vesa's argument that handwritten signage looked operationally unstable. Breathe first. Cassiane sat at the second microphone, not as a guest to be consumed, as a witness who had chosen her own chair. Seraphine sat behind the glasses in the producer's room with Vesa, not because she controlled the board, but because I had asked her to listen from the place where the first night had left an empty chair. Junie ran sound. Amma monitored the rest room, where callers could be supported after sharing difficult stories. Orla watched the hall. Outside, rain fell gently over Mero City. The red on-air sign glowed. I leaned toward the microphone. "Welcome to the night room," I said. My voice trembled. I let it. "If you are here because you miss Midnight Mercy, I do too. If you are here because someone told you this room might hold what was too heavy to carry alone, welcome. If you are here because you are angry, frightened, curious, grieving, skeptical, tired, or only unable to sleep, welcome. I looked through the glass. Seraphine's eyes held mine. The bond warmed. I looked at Cassiane. She nodded once. I continued. This room has rules. Your story belongs to you. Your name belongs to you. Your silence belongs to you. We will not take what you do not choose to give. We will not call pain unstable because it refuses to be pretty. We will not confuse attention with care. The first call light blinked. Then another. Not an explosion, a constellation. I smiled, and if no one told you today, I breathed first. I am glad you exist. The night room began, not with a grand confession, not with Cassiane's full story, not with my mother's file, not with Seraphine's apology. It began with a woman from South Quay who said she had been holding an old document for 8 years and wanted to know if someone could sit with her while she decided whether to send it. We did. That was the whole miracle. We did not rush her. We did not make her brave for the audience. We sat with her. On the other side of the glass, Seraphine listened. Not as the alpha who owned towers, not as the woman who bought the studio, as one woman among many, learning that sometimes love was not the hand that lifted you out of the dark. Sometimes love was the hand that stayed visible while you found your own way through it. At dawn, after the first broadcast ended, I stepped out of Studio 9. Seraphine waited in the hallway. No cameras, no speech, no city watching. Only her, only me. Only the quiet after women had trusted us with the beginning of their truths. "You did it," she said. "No," I whispered. We opened the door. Her smile was soft. And now we keep it open." She held out her hand. I took it. The bond settled between us, not as a chain, not as a claim, but as a signal, a frequency, a promise to listen before speaking, to ask before touching, to build rooms instead of cages, to let truth stand even when it made love harder. Outside, morning rain washed Mero City clean enough to begin again. Not innocent, never that, but awake. And when the sun finally rose over the broadcast towers, Studio 9 did not belong to Calla. It did not belong to Seraphine. It did not even belong to me alone. It belonged to every woman who had ever whispered into the dark and waited for someone to say, "I hear you. Stay. The night is not finished with us, but neither are we." End of episode 3.